Alright people, since I haven't made a tutorial video in a while, I think it's about time that I make my first tutorial video for Season 3. I apologize for this being long overdue. I have been very busy with other stuff lately, and my schedule has been very hectic this past few months. But thankfully, I was still able to bring you some punishment guides. I have been receiving a lot of requests to make more punishment guides for such and such characters. So just to let you know, I have been reading all your comments, and I will try my best to bring them to you as soon as I can. But for now, let's take a break from making punishment guides, and let's learn more about another part of Lost Offense. So today I'm going to teach you guys how to use Lost Backturn Stance. So now let me first introduce you to Lost Backturn Stance. It turns out that Law is one of the few characters that can do moves while he has his back facing the opponent. But I'm afraid Lost Backturn Stance doesn't have as many moves like, let's say, Master Raven or Xiaoyu. However, it can still be used to throw your opponent's defense off. Lost Backturn Stance is still part of his offense, but you would never want to depend on this too much, because Lost's front-facing offense is already very good, and most good players would know how to deal with this. So coming up next, let me first introduce you to all the moves that put Law in backturn. First we have Back 4, which is Law's fastest homing move at 14 frames, which can also go into backturn by holding back after the input. So the new input now becomes Back 4 and then hold back. Going into backturn from this move works very well on hit, but on block it works very well when they're trying to duck the extension Back 4-3. Next we have Down Back 2. This is also 14 frames like Back 4, but it doesn't have a homing or tracking property whatsoever. But this one happens to be an elbow instead, so it could be used on people who like to use parries. It does have a Frogman extension in Down Back 2-4, but this extension can be floated with jabs and can be stepped. For the next move, it's the alternative 10-frame Punisher 2 Back 2. The second hit of this move is also an elbow like Down Back 2, but it is a high. This move also has extensions in 2 Back 2 1-2 to discourage opponents in interrupting Lost Backturn Stance. For the last one, we have Forward 2 Back 2, which is a 12-frame version of 2 Back 2. So you might be asking, why would we ever need to use this when we have a faster 2 Back 2? Well, you're right. 2 Back 2 does come out at 10 frames, and this one comes out at 12, but what's good about this is that this is the only move that lets Law enter backturn from his DSS. And also because Forward 2 is the fastest move that you could ever do from DSS. This becomes uninterruptible when done from moves like While Standing 4 and 4-3. And it also has the same extensions as 2 Back 2. You could also do Forward 2 Back 2 1-2 to discourage opponents from interrupting backturn. Looking at the frame data for these 4 moves, their frames are almost identical to one another. On hit, they leave Law at either +6 or +7 frame advantage, and on block they all leave Law at -4. On hit, there's not much that they can do. Law has a frame advantage, and we can pretty much mix them up from here. And also, Backturn 2 becomes an uninterruptible counter hit launcher, so always be on the lookout for people who like to press buttons after getting hit. But where it gets interesting is when you get these moves blocked. On block, they all leave Law at -4, and it's obviously their turn to attack. But -4 isn't really that big of a frame disadvantage, so it leaves us with some interesting options depending on how they react. And then there's this one other move that I left out on purpose, and this move is Back 3. Like Back 4, you can also enter backturn by holding back after the input, and the reason why I put this apart from the other 4 moves is that his frames are entirely different. Going into back turn from this move only serves to create more distance from the opponent when you get this move blocked. And then there's also this wall combo, but that's completely out of the scope of this video, so we're not going to talk about that here. The first back turn option that I'm going to introduce you guys to is back turn down 3. This is a fast low poke which also high crushes. This is the same move as a regular down 3 plus 4 but done from back turn instead. So the main difference are the frames. This one comes out a lot faster at 10 frames and it puts slow at plus 3 on hit. So on hit, it puts slow at a good situation to follow up with a counter hit while standing 4 if they like pressing buttons, or even a slide if they just want to backdash away. A while standing 1 will only trade when they try 10 frame moves. Back turn down 3 becomes really handy because being at -4 will still go under fast highs like jabs and magic force. But this option will lose if they try fast mids. Well, to be more specific, 13 frame mids like down forward ones. And also you want to watch out for mid counter hitting launchers like Kazuya's down forward 2, which is 14 frames fast. This will trade with back turn down 3, but Kazuya still gets the counter hit combo, so you still don't want that. Now since back turn down 3 is the primary low that we want to do from back turn, the primary mid that we want to use as a mix up to that would be back turn 2. This move really isn't that great on block because alone it is -14. But it has a very delayable mid extension which can be used to discourage punish attempts. And the second hit being delayable also means that it is very hit confirmable. You always would want to hit confirm this whenever you mix it up in back turn down 3, because the second hit is launch punishable at -17. Also don't forget what I already mentioned before. Back turn 2 becomes an uninterruptible counter hit launcher whenever you hit the move that puts slow in back turn. So up next I'm going to show you the combo that I almost always do because it is very reliable. And to add to that, I'm also going to show you the combo that most people like to do. But here's one thing to keep in mind if you're ever going to do this combo. The filler that you want to use is 4 up 3 instead of forward 4 up 3. This is because doing forward 4 will slow down the move startup from 11 to 13 frames. We do have another mid option that is better than back turn 2 frames wise. We have the back turn hop kick, back turn up forward 4. I didn't think this move to be the primary mid to mix up with back turn down 3, well because of its very bad range. This is only usable after back 4 because back 4 leaves slaw close enough to not make a back turn hop kick whiff. So you never would want to use this back turn hop kick for moves like down back 2 or 2 back 2. The pushback leaves slaw very far away so that if you try a back turn hop kick, I almost always guarantee that you're gonna whiff the back turn hop kick. But the pushback isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm gonna teach you guys later on how to use the pushback to your advantage. But for now, let's just talk about the back turn options. Okay, so for the next move, we have the regular one jab, but done from back turn. The jab is still 10 frames fast, and you can still do the regular one jab extensions like 1-1-1-1, 1-2-3, 1-2 into DSS, and so on. But remember that if you get the move that put law in back turn block, you're at -4, so that makes this jab come out at 14 frames. But this is still useful if you want to float some hop kicks, since generally hop kicks come out at 15 frames, and the jab being at 14, it's still gonna hit 1 frame earlier than the hop kick. So bottom line is that you can use the jab strings from back turn to beat 15 frame and slower moves, as long as they don't high crush. Now for the move that most people fear the most when law enters back turn. Law does have a low hit launcher from back turn, which is back turn down 4. The combo you want to do from this is this. Most people that have been hit by this before will almost always duck immediately once they see Law enter back turn. So if you encounter someone like that, you can mess with their timing by delaying the move. Or you can do a back turn hop kick when you're close enough. And also, you can try some turnaround shenanigans. They're gonna work when you find someone respecting too much. And guess what? I'm about to show them next. Okay, so let's say you have them already conditioned to respect back turn. You can mess with them more by accessing more moves from back turn. And we do that by simply turning around. You can turn around standing by tapping forward while in back turn, and this gives us access to our standing moves. Then you can turn around crouching by tapping down forward also while in back turn. And this one gives us access to our while standing moves. Personally, I prefer the latter option because it does go under highs, because Law is technically crouching during the turnaround animation. And it also gives us access to our very good while standing options like while standing 4 into DSS pressure and while standing 1. Okay, so now if you want to get even crazier, you could also try doing throws after the turnaround. The turnaround animation will make the throws even harder to spot, and thus it makes them harder to break. So coming up next, I'm going to show the inputs in order to easily get the throws out of the turnaround animation. Law can also turn around defensively away from the opponent. One situation, for example, is that Law's back turn down 3 will lose to any fast mid. So the way to counter that is by turning around and blocking at the same time. And this is done by holding back during back turn. Turning around this way will create space to make short moves whiff and block mids at the same time. So this works best if your opponent is interrupting Law's back turn with punishable mids, because Law is still able to block the moves in time and do an appropriate punish. The other way to turn around defensively is by holding down back while in back turn. This creates more space than just holding back, because this will duck under highs and will leave Law in a crouching position, which sets him up perfectly to do a while standing 2 in case they whiff. But the weakness of turning around crouching is that it's susceptible to mids with far reach. Okay, so far that's how you apply Law's turnaround shenanigans. Okay, so for the next move, it's back turn 1+2. As of now, there is only one known use for this move, and that is when you throw them with Law's 2+4 and down forward 1+2, 1-2, 1+2, and Forgotten Realm. You use this right after the throw to screw the opponent just after the floor break. Last we have the moves back turn 3 and back turn 4-3, which I very rarely use. Back turn 3 is the 10 frame high kick, which could be used to wall splat. But I would rather use back turn 1-2-3 than this move if my only goal was to wall splat. You could also use this as a parry bait if they would ever want to press buttons after blocking this. And back turn 4-3 is this 2-hit string from back turn. The second hit is delayable, and could be used to catch people pressing buttons after the first hit. The start of this move is still fast at 11 frames, but the second hit is -12 on block. Okay, so for the last part of this video, this part is for the people who watch this video only to learn how to shut down Law's backturn stance. And that's right, I'm gonna be talking about the weakness of Law's backturn stance. Okay, first let me tell you that this only applies when the move that put Law in backturn was blocked. Which means that Law is at -4 and the opponent is free to interrupt Law's backturn options. The first option that the opponent can do to stuff out Law's backturn stance is a dick jab. This is a very good way to shut down Law's backturn options, because the dick jab is very fast at 10 frames and it leaves them at a frame advantage. But Law has ways to counter this. After moves like down back 2, 2 back 2, and forward 2 back 2, Law can then hold back while in backturn to turn around and make the dick jab whiff. Then he can punish this easily with that 3+4. But in the case of back 4, we cannot do the turnaround because back 4 leaves Law closer to the opponent, and the dick jab will still tag Law while he's turning around. So what Law can do instead is just do a regular back 4 without going into back turn, and then simply attempting a low parry. But sadly, there's another way for them to completely shut down Law's backturn stance. Some characters, instead of doing a dick jab, they have a generic down 4. And in Law's case, his generic down 4 is his down 3+4. Note that this is a bit slower than a dick jab at 12 frames, and it is -2 on hit. But it does have farther reach than a dick jab. So this will still hit Law when he turns around by holding back. And then, for the move back 4, you can still apply the same method that we do for the dick jab, which is to just do a regular back 4 into a low parry, and for down back 2, we can do the extension down back 2-4 to go over the dick jab. But in the case of 2 back 2 and 4-2 back 2, their extension starts with a high, the 2 back 2 1 and 4-2 back 2 1. So the down 4 would just go under that. So aside from dick jabs and generic down 4s, there are also characters with longer dick jabs, like for example, Jack, Gigas, Bears, and Marduk. So keep that in mind. Alright, so that's it for the video, you guys. I hope you all learned something. If you like my video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, or if you haven't subscribed yet, there's the subscribe button. And one more thing, before I finally end the video, if you're interested in learning more about playing Law, I just finished updating my written Law guide for Season 3. I posted the guide in my Patreon page. This guide is like my Law journal, and I always try to keep it updated. So if you're a die-hard Law fan, then this guide is definitely for you. But if you're someone who's picking Law up for the first time, or if you're someone who hasn't decided yet, I've made the first 3 chapters of the guide free to read. So definitely check this out first before you decide. Alright, thanks for your time listening to me ramble about this guide. Hope you all have a great time.